Welcome, everyone, to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Market Watch. We're going to evaluate quarterbacks and running back values in 2025 drafts. Now, in this episode specifically, we're going to delve into the average draft position for running backs like Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, De'Von Achane, quarterbacks as well. We're going to analyze whether these stars are undervalued or a little overpriced in current drafts. We're going to give insights to help you navigate that potential market inefficiencies. You join us as we assess the factors influencing draft positions, and we offer strategies to capitalize on these perceptions in your fantasy football leagues. Yes. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. We're brought to you by Pool Genius and Edge Boost. I'm Jim Coventry, and I'm always joined by Anthony Cervino, my RotoWire teammate. As we said earlier, today's show, we're going to include an early ADP market watch for quarterbacks and running backs. Because, Anthony, it's never too early to talk ADP. Whether you're in a best ball draft, whether you're looking ahead to summer drafts, the market is being set now. Yeah, there will be changes, but we're going to get on these market trends early. Now, I want to point this out at the beginning. It's very important. Average draft positions that I use. My friend Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com. If you're a high-stakes player, you want to get on FantasyMojo.com. The service Darren Armani offers you there is invaluable. He gives you ADP broken down like this last 7 days. So most of free agency was done. These ADPs are fresh. They're high stakes leagues, so people have some skin in the game. These aren't people just auto drafting. This is important to know. And then obviously we get closer to the season. Darren's product is very good, so you definitely want to check out FantasyMojo.com. So we start out with our quarterbacks, Anthony. So let's set you up on Patrick Mahomes. His early ADP is the quarterback 6. Now that's finally gone a little bit lower than it's been in some past years. I do want to point out, Anthony, second straight year, Mahomes has not hit 28 touchdowns. He is only, I'm going to say only, averaging 4,055 yards the last 2 years. Because remember, this is a 5,000-yard guy early in his career, right? And his yards per attempt. Last year, we complained, it was 7. It was down to 6.8. So it's been the lowest. He was commonly in the 8-yard per attempt range earlier. Rushing is still fine. Pretty much it gets you into 300 to 400-yard range every year. Only gets a couple touchdowns. Doesn't run near the goal line since he had that injury a few years back. The offensive line, Anthony, is a bit of a problem. Joe Thuney's gone. They picked up a backup from the 49ers. They tried 2 years, $30 million. I don't know if that's going to be an issue. I'm a little bit worried here. Overall, Anthony, I'm going to say this. Quarterback 6 for Mahomes. I like that. They're bringing back DeAndre. I'm bringing back, oh my gosh, Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown's back. Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice, we're not sure if the legal issues crop up. Not sure about that. But I can't take Mahomes at quarterback 6, Anthony. Talk about Mahomes, and will you draft me at quarterback 6?
Yeah, I'm normally very much in on Mahomes. Last year, I bit the bait, and it kind of blew up in my face. And we look at it this year, and it looks good. He's going to have a lot of nice skill position weapons. And if they're healthy, he has the potential to put up big numbers. But the offensive line, as you said, I'm worried about it, especially the left tackle position. They brought in, I forgot his name, from the 49ers. I don't think he's ever really started a lot of games in his tenure with San Francisco. Maybe they address the positions in the draft. But if Mahomes is not protected, I know you've brought it up and everybody's seen it. The 2 Super Bowls they have lost. Patrick Mahomes was not protected, and he's just a different quarterback. And this year, I feel like we say it every year, the quarterback position is ultra deep to where if we look at the other quarterbacks going behind Patrick Mahomes, I'd rather have quite a few other guys. We look at Baker Mayfield. Yes, he loses Liam Cohen, but I do think they have enough weapons. And we've also seen Baker Mayfield go from Canales to Cohen. Maybe they keep it going. There's guys like Bo Nix who has some ceiling and also a high rushing floor. If you're into the Ben Johnson effect, possibly in Chicago, you can go get Caleb Williams a little bit later, and somebody I'm going to be taking a lot a round or 2 later than Patrick Mahomes is Justin Fields. So his current ADP is a little bit too early for me to take Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. So like I said, ADP quarterback 6. I have him ranked as my quarterback 8, which means I'm not getting him. And 8's kind of dicey, but I'm good with that. But that leads now to our next quarterback, Anthony, a player you just brought up, Caleb Williams, Chicago Bears. So now Caleb Williams, his early ADP is the quarterback 12. And I think that's one of those safe ADPs. I think there's some people kind of in on him, but not too sure. I'll say this. Last year, I really struggle blaming much on Caleb Williams. First of all, we saw Jaden Daniels. Everything was schemed up. Easy throws. Bo Nix, easy throws. What did Caleb Williams have? A bunch of bubble screens to DJ Moore. Gee, thanks. With an offensive line that the interior line was so bad game after game. The defensive linemen were in that backfield. They were spending as much time in the backfield as the running back was. It was horrible. Williams had no chance. Now, Williams runs for 489 yards. That should not go unnoticed. That's a massive deal. No touchdowns. So that one's weird, but those obviously are fickle. But he can run. The passing, okay, 20 touchdowns. Again, not his fault. The Bears, what do? Interior offensive line. Joe Thuney, left guard. They bring in center Drew Dahlman from Atlanta. Right guard. I know he was a little bad last year with the Rams, Jonah Jackson, but Jonah Jackson played for Ben Johnson. Now, Ben Johnson, that's the next point. I don't know if Ben Johnson could craft the same offense that he drafted in Detroit, and I don't know if it's a perfect storm, but I believe he's a good offensive mind. And I believe it's not going to be difficult to figure out, oh, we got DJ Moore. Oh, guess what? We also got Rome Odunze. We don't have the running game we had in Detroit, but we don't need it. We're going to throw the ball here because Caleb Williams, in theory, should be way less limited than Jared Goff. So at quarterback 12, I have Williams, my quarterback 9. I'm all in. I want to hear your thoughts and whether you'll draft Caleb Williams. I think you said earlier that you might at quarterback 12.
Yeah, I'm buying into Caleb Williams, and depending how the board falls, maybe I reach a little bit for him. The new look Bears offensive line, they did an outstanding job addressing that position. Williams sacked, I believe, 67 or 68 times, third most in NFL history last year. Like you, I don't put a lot of last season's struggles on Caleb Williams. We don't know if Keenan Allen's coming back. I would say probably not, which moves up Rome Odunze entering his second season. He has the weapons. Even Cole Kmet's a playmaker. We know what DJ Moore can do. And I absolutely love what Ben Johnson can potentially bring to the table. He schemes the ball into his playmakers' hands. And we also know that Caleb Williams, he doesn't run a lot, but he does have the ability to scramble and extend the play until somebody gets open. So, yeah, I'm going to buy into Caleb Williams. And it's not so much, obviously, they called him a generational talent last year. He obviously has the skill set to succeed. This is really about the offseason of the Chicago Bears. And yes, they win the offseason every year. But this season, getting Caleb Williams, the best offensive mind on the market, and Ben Johnson, and also saying, hey, we need to keep our quarterback upright and give him time. And they went ahead and got 3 new offensive line starters. So, yes, I am going to buy into Caleb Williams this year.
I will add one little point. I do believe that Keenan Allen will not be back. Yeah. The Bears had a very under-the-radar signing of Olamide Zaccheaus. Zaccheaus is not a superstar, but he is a competent slot receiver, especially if you don't want a guy that's going to command a ton of targets, because like you said, you got DJ Moore, you got Rome Odunze. You don't want a third guy commanding the ball. You want a nice little outlet when you go to your 3 receiver sets that can move the chains for you when the play breaks down. And so I think the signing of Zaccheaus, low money, but I think that tells me they're ready to move on from Keenan Allen. Would you see that as a potential link where I'm correct?
Yeah, Zaccheaus is a solid player, quality player. I don't think he's not going to, put up big numbers. But, when you drafted Rome Odunze and you paid DJ Moore, do you really need Keenan Allen at this point?
That's the point. And that's the point. You can't crowd it too much. And I know some teams think, well, of course you can never have too much. I don't think that's one of those things, because Allen's always commanded the ball. And I think you don't want that here. So, yeah, I think we both agree on that. But I think Zaccheaus is a perfect addition. You're not drafting him in fantasy. If you're in a 16-team league or something with a deeper bench, yeah, maybe you add him as a wide receiver 6 or something like that. But you're not looking at Zaccheaus in fantasy. But for NFL, I think it's a real nice fit for them.
All right, before we move on, even in Detroit and Ben Johnson, they never really had that wide receiver 3. Guys like Tim Patrick and Khalif Raymond, they were just good football guys to where if you need to, pick up a first down, or maybe you scheme up a play in the end zone for him, that's great. It was really you have the running back catching the football, your 2 wide receivers, and obviously a good tight end, and that's what they have right now in Chicago.
One last thing. I think you made another point there that I want to just expand on. So Tim Patrick was number 3 in Detroit, and he was playing snaps. Well, he had a 1-2 touchdown game. He had another decent game, and then he fell off the map. That's what you could expect from Zacchaeus, not the 2 touchdown games. But you're going to see weeks where, Zacchaeus got 7 targets. But then the next 2 games, he might get a total of 1.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be a featured part, but just understand it's a good building block. All right, we got to move on. Let's go to our next quarterback, Jordan Love, Green Bay Packers, quarterback 14. Now, last year we were getting him a quarterback 8, quarterback 9. Anthony, in my mind, this is a pretty easy one. Now, Jordan Love as a rookie, I remember I cut him in week 6 or so. Week 9 of his rookie year in 2023 is when Jordan Love put it together. It was when the coaching staff there, Matt LaFleur, everything got worked out. It was like a mind meld, and everything went great. And so we thought we'd get that Jordan Love last year. Well, it didn't happen. Jordan Love regressed last year. 3,389 yards. He missed 2 games. 25. I mean, that was in 2024. Now, I'm saying back up. So he throws for 3,389 last year and 25 touchdowns. That's not good. That's not a good passing line, even in 15 games. Now, he had 32 touchdowns the prior year. So he down 7 touchdowns, down about 800 yards. Again, he missed 2 games. Here's the thing, though. Interceptions, he had the same amount each year. But his passing attempts, Anthony, they went down from 579 to 425. Why? Once Matt LaFleur realized the passing game is not working, they went to Josh Jacobs. They ran the ball, and they used the passing game as a secondary function. I don't think Jordan Love showed us enough last year that they're going to put the team on his shoulders. I think this is a Josh Jacobs-based offense again because they were successful with it. They'll pass when they need to. I think at this point, Jordan Love is probably more of a game manager. And so at quarterback 14, the cost is fair. I got him as quarterback 18. I'm not touching him. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm also out on Jordan Love. And I was never really a big Jordan Love guy. You go back to his rookie season, I was completely out on him. And then he started getting going. And then last season, I caught myself buying in. Hey, maybe I was wrong here. And I overpaid for him. And some of the teams I had with Jordan Love struggled. And I think a big reason why, you mentioned Josh Jacobs. We go and look at the games where Jordan Love is asked to throw the football with volume. He makes mistakes. He throws interceptions. Yep. He gives away the football. When the Packers really turned their season around, you saw these games where Josh Jacobs dominant and Jordan Love was not asked to throw the football. I think quite a few of those wins down the stretch, he threw the ball below 29 times, and I don't think he had an interception, maybe 1 down the stretch, maybe.
So we're on the same page. Jordan Love
actually he did not throw an interception between weeks 12 and 18.
And that's when they made him a game manager.
Yeah.
If you stop taking risks, guess what? Life looks good all of a sudden, right? And so that's what Matt LaFleur, look, I give LaFleur a ton of credit. He's a great coach because he is, whatever his situation is, he figures it out and he makes the best of it. And the fact that they just paid Jordan Love all that money and they're like, you know what? We got to back off this. This is not the way we're going to win. That dude can coach. And this year, that's probably going to be more the same. And Christian Watson, remember, tore up his knee in the ACL last year. We may not see him until the second half of the season, and we don't know what it'll be like when he gets back. They don't use Jaden Reed. Now, we don't need to carry on. We're both out on Jordan Love at ADP. Again, those 425 pass attempts, even though it's 15 games, that's very telling. Expect more of the same. All right, let's go to another quarterback here, Anthony. Big D got Dak Prescott, quarterback 15. Now, Prescott, look, if you're into voodoo and stuff, every other year with Dak Prescott's beautiful. If you're in these even number years, and this goes back 6 years, every even number year, he misses about half the season. His touchdown to interception ratio, 43-27. So it's not even like, it's like 1.5 to 1. Well, if you look at the odd, and again, we're talking voodoo here, okay? If you're going to eat odd number years, the last 3 odd numbers, guess what? 103 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, and he stayed healthy. So if you're into voodoo, this is Dak Prescott's year. I don't know how to quantify this in real terms because he's great every other year, and then he's either hurt or ineffective every other year. It rotates. That makes it very hard to predict a player. I am not excited that Mike McCarthy's gone because they bring in Brian Schottenheimer. I would have been really happy McCarthy was gone But Brian Schottenheimer, are you kidding me? I don't even get it. I get it. He's had some good teams. Not his fault. It wasn't. They were good despite him. Very predictable play caller. But that said, I don't think the Dallas defense is going to be great. I think it'll be good. They're going to have to score some points. The offensive line is not good. That line is transitioning downward. But he still has CeeDee Lamb, and he still has Jake Ferguson. More on him in another show for next week's show. But I will buy Prescott as a quarterback 2, a quarterback 15, because I still believe he is an outstanding quarterback. I believe the injuries are fluky at times, and I believe that he's going to have to throw the ball enough, and he's proven he can have quarterback 1 production. Thoughts on Dak Prescott?
Yeah, where Dak's ADP is, and again, we're at a position now in a place and time where there's so much quarterback talent, at least in fantasy football, to where guys like Dak Prescott, they get buried a little bit. And quarterback 15 for a player, now take away the injuries, most of his career, he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback in points per game most of his career. Now, we have to factor in the injuries. We have to factor in, well, what's this offense going to look like with Brian Schottenheimer, without Mike McCarthy? Are the Cowboys going to address the wide receiver 2 position? But let's be fair. Even if they don't, this offense has always run through CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, at least the past few years. So I think there's enough there. And you mentioned the defense. Now, this defense is not opportunistic as we've seen in years past. There's fewer opportunities for Dak Prescott to pad his numbers, but it probably is going to be bad enough to where they will have to score. And when I mean score, I mean they're going to have to throw the football to stay in games and to win games. It almost reminds me of, and it's a big step down. It kind of reminds me of Cincinnati this year.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Below Cincinnati's skill set offensively.
Right. But the whole point is, if your defense is bad and you got the quarterback that can sling the ball around the yard, then that's kind of a real nice recipe for fantasy football success. Now, little tease here later, not today, but soon, we'll be talking about Jalen Tolbert. Down the road, give us maybe a few weeks. I got some ideas on, and also next week's show. You won't want to miss that. I got some really good takes on Jake Ferguson. I know Anthony will too. You won't want to miss that one either, but that's going to be next week. We will get to Tolbert at some point in the near future. He's going to be on a couple of sleeper lists of mine for sure. Hey, we got a partner, Edge Boost. If you ever had your debit card declined or had to call your bank at 3 a.m. in Vegas, I am long asleep by then. But hey, Edge Boost is the first consumer-facing online bank dedicated to the gaming industry. There are numerous benefits using Edge Boost: $250K per day in debit deposits, unlimited withdrawals, cash back on sports betting, DFS, and sweeps. You deposit $25, you get $25. 100% approval for all gaming activity. Financial segmentation for discretion and responsible gaming. Compatible today for prediction markets, iCasino, DFS, sports betting, lottery, brick and mortar casinos, horse racing, and sweeps. No transaction fees or account freezes or reviews. You visit edgeboost.bet today and you use the code ROTOPOD. So again, edgeboost.bet and the promo code ROTOPOD. Back to quarterbacks ADP. Remember, this ADP is from my friends at fantasymojo.com. FFPC high stakes data lasts 7 days, fresh ADP. So you have a good feel. This is like post most of the free agency market. You have a good feel right now. These early numbers are like Trevor Lawrence, Anthony, going as the quarterback 18. And you know what? That's one of those foot in the water, you dip a toe in to see what the water's like ADPs, because nobody's worried about the quarterback 18. It's not really an aggressive, but it's also not like banished outside of quarterback 2 range. And think about Trevor Lawrence's career, what we thought he would be as the number 1 pick. You know, they throw out that word generational talent. I'm not one to usually do that too much, and I didn't, but people talk about that. And then we remember 2022, Anthony, the second half of that season, Lawrence looked like he was really coming on. Things were going great for him. And then all of a sudden, trending down the last 2 years. Realistically, he has just not been very good. Last year, now he missed 7 games, okay? So he throws for 2,045 yards, only 11 touchdowns in those 10 games, 7 picks in those 10 games. Not good at all there. Completion percentage, 60%, which was down 5% from 2023. Is rushing. It used to be decent. He used to, Anthony, go for like 21 yards a game, 11.9 last year. That's a significant hit. In 5 of 9 games, he didn't even hit 17 fantasy points. But here we go. We bring in Liam Cohen. And we're thinking to ourselves, Anthony, man, Liam Cohen did some real nice work with Baker Mayfield. Now, Mayfield had a good year without him in 2023, like 25 touchdowns, but like 40 last year. Maybe you're 41 for Baker Mayfield. And so now we're starting to think, man, he really pieces together some Sean McVay concepts. Offense, he uses his personnel well. You got Brian Thomas. It's a nice way to start things out there. We'll see what happens. But Trevor Lawrence, I really do think Liam Cohen has proven in his short time as a coach that he can really work well with quarterbacks. And a quarterback 18, that's not a risk. So I'm going to be willing. I have Lawrence right at quarterback 16. I'll take him as a quarterback too there. I want to take the chance. And I know there's bust potential. What are your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence?
I'm buying into Trevor Lawrence, right? QB 18 for a player where 2022, 2023, only missed one game in that 2-season period. He finished as a top 12 or 13 quarterback in points per game. Whatever happened last year, it all fell apart. Press Taylor, Doug Peterson, that offense was a complete mess. Injuries did not help their cause either, losing Christian Kirk and I believe Evan Ingram at times. Trevor Lawrence gets my guy, Liam Cohen. I'm all in on Liam Cohen and what he's done for other quarterbacks through his journey into his first head coaching spot. Jacksonville has some playmakers. People, I mean, talk about buried ADPs. Guys like Travis Etienne, who we know at times was a really good football player. He's essentially free in fantasy drafts right now. So they have talent, him and Bigsby at running back. They moved on from Evan Ingram, but I think Brenton Strange can play. Brian Thomas Jr., one of the more exciting rookies coming out. Some holes in the wide receiver group still.
Yeah.
But they did bring in Diami Brown. But I do think there is enough here for Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen to work with. And I think what people don't realize that there's some under-the-radar rushing ability here. Normally when he's healthy, he's good for a handful of rushing touchdowns as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I'm with you on the personnel. The personnel is sketchy outside of Brian Thomas. It is sketchy. We don't know what Brenton Strange is. Like you, I'm optimistic. And Gabe Davis, well, please. You know, he had a couple decent seasons with Josh Allen, but wasn't sniffing 1,000 yards. So you're right. But if you got a coach that can scheme people open, it changes the equation. I think you're on that same boat that I am. If he's willing, he's going to get people schemed open, then Trevor Lawrence, if he's given defined reads, which he's never really had, and Brian Thomas Jr. is obviously a clear megastar. So, and I'm not done. The draft, they could add somebody. And it's still late in free agency. There are names out there. It might be older names. There are still people in free agency they could bring in. Any final thoughts?
No, I just think that, because Trevor Lawrence has been a disappointment, like even in those 2 good years, like I said, where he was a quarterback 12 and 13 in points per game, he was still a disappointment in fantasy because of how hyped he was coming out. If I draft Lawrence around that QB 18 range and he gives me a top 13 season, I'm more than satisfied.
There's no doubt. All right, let's move to Justin Fields now of the New York Jets. His ADP since he's been acquired by the Jets, quarterback 19. Again, that's one of those safe ADPs. Now, I will point this out. Last year, Fields had the starting gig with the Steelers for a while till Russell Wilson took over. The Steelers were very careful with how they used Fields. They used safe runs. They weren't letting him take off, and they weren't designing these big potential runs. The passing, very, very safe passes. So in 4 of 6 starts, Justin Fields didn't hit 146 yards. Now, he's not going to be a Superman quarterback, but that was low. But I think it was how they used him. As a rusher, as I said, they used him safely. Only 289 rushing yards. Now, it wasn't many games, 6 starts, but for Justin Fields, he could do better than that. Here's the whole thing, Anthony. He goes to the Jets. We have no idea how they're going to use him, but we know they invested in the offensive line last year. Breece Hall had a down year, but they have Breece Hall. They got Garrett Wilson. They have other pieces. If the Jets are willing to lean in with a full-blown RPO offense, we could see that 1,100-yard rushing from Fields that we saw with the Bears a number of years back. Because remember, Justin Fields, in my opinion, he cannot read the entire field. So by going RPO, you clear defined looks. You often will set a play to go to a certain half of the field, left, right, whatever, and you set that up to make it easier. If they go into that mindset, Justin Fields could be that guy he was in Chicago. Not a great real quarterback, but he could blow the doors off for fantasy. So if you want that lottery ticket, and if your mind says the Jets are going to have to go RPO because he cannot be a pocket passer. So if they go into that mindset, then drafting Justin Fields at quarterback 19, he could end up as a quarterback 8. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm absolutely all in on Justin Fields. I've done a few best ball drafts already, and he's going nowhere near his ADP. He's being I've seen him drafted over Kyler Murray, closer to that top 10, top 12 range. So if you're going in the drafts thinking you're going to get this bargain on Fields, you might have to be a little bit proactive and reach for him where you're comfortable. Justin Fields, listen, I'm not in on him as an NFL quarterback, but as a fantasy quarterback, notably those 2 years in Chicago, 2022 and 23, he was a top 5 quarterback and a top 9 quarterback in points per game. We know what he brings as a runner. He might be the most electric runner. And we're in a league with Lamar Jackson and
right.
Jaden Daniels. He might be the most electric playmaker with his legs of all the quarterbacks in the league. Now you set him up in that backfield with Breece Hall. You have a weapon like Garrett Wilson. We know he already helped unlock DJ Moore. Like, the Jets have talent. And I think what's flying under the radar is the OC hire of Tanner Ekstrand from Detroit comes over. And I talked about earlier with Ben Johnson. He ran an offense where they got the ball into their playmakers' hands. And that's what Ekstrand, I think, is going to do here in New York. So I'm very much buying into Justin Fields and his fantasy football ADP. I don't see a world, right? Because if you look at the contract they gave Justin Fields, it's not, they're not into him a lot. And I think what the Jets are looking themselves in the mirror and saying, hey, we're going to give Justin Fields a shot. We're going to give him the entire season. If it doesn't work out, then we're going to be picking high next year. And then we go draft a quarterback in the draft. If it works out, we resign him. Either way, I think we get a full season of Justin Fields. And even if it doesn't work out as an NFL quarterback, he's going to put up numbers in fantasy.
100% he is. And I just think if they go RPO, Breece Hall could be another player. We're going to talk about Breece Hall later. Yeah. And actually, we'll be back with some interesting running back ADPs after we take a very short break. All right. De'Von Achane, as we begin our running backs, he's going off the board, Anthony, as the running back 4. Now, we were worried 2 years ago when Achane was a rookie about durability. Well, he played 17 games last year. So for right now, the short-term mindset says, oh, he made it through a season. 1,499 scrimmage yards. We'll just call it 1,500, rounded up 12 total touchdowns. Here was the thing, Anthony. 78 receptions. PPR superstar. 1,500 yards is great. 12 touchdowns is great. But you throw 78 receptions in there, that's another ballgame. Not many running backs are catching that level. Very, very few. Now, first thing I'll say is this, Anthony. Achane as a receiver, Jonnu Smith as a receiver were wonderful. But that was part of the undoing of Miami, because that meant that Tyreek Hill, and I know he had a wrist injury, I get it, and Jalen Waddle were not being used well. So there's a disconnect there. And I really think that if Mike McDaniel, the coach, is going to fix this thing, it's going to be getting the ball to Waddle and Hill more and less and through the air to Achane and Jonnu Smith. That's just my theory. I could be wrong, but McDaniel's coaching for his career, I would think here. Yeah. But I'll point out another thing. As a rookie, and I said this, that 7.8 yards per carry Achane had, I always said, obviously, and I'm no smart person for saying this, that was unsustainable. That was Barry Sanders couldn't do that. Barry Sanders wasn't even doing 6. So Achane falls to 4.5. That's about right. That's solid. It's very good. And broken tackle rate was only 50th percentile, but his speed after contact, 73rd percentile. So he's very good there. So that said, Anthony, I do think his receiving usage goes down. I still think a running back at 188 pounds, if he's going to see a lot of work, I still think there's a very big injury risk. Therefore, I think at running back 4, we are drafting on everything to go perfectly. The receptions to still be there, the injury there. I cannot pop running back 4 price to take him there. I'm not questioning the talent, but I am as my running back 8 because I do have durability concerns, even though he proved us wrong last year. Go ahead.
I'm a very much an Achane guy. If you want to call me an Achane truther, I've been in on him since the day he's been drafted to the Dolphins. You're saying all the right things. how high of a risk he is taking him as the fourth running back off the board, especially when we look at these other guys, Henry and McCaffrey. You know, you got the rookie Genty coming in, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky. There's so many nice running backs. But what De'Von Achane brings to the table and how they use him, especially last year as a receiver, number 2 running back in targets, number 1 in yards, receptions, they essentially used him as a receiver. And, you know, I think you mentioned a lot when the enemy defensive coordinators, they took away Waddle and Tyreek Hill. They took away those big plays. We saw the emergence of Jonnu, and we saw a different usage out of De'Von Achane. In fact, in games that De'Von Achane obviously played, 47% of his games, he had 7 or more targets, and 58%, he had 5 or more targets. And a lot of those are with Tua. So if Tua is healthy and on the field, he's looking to target De'Von Achane, and I don't really see them veering away from that, especially with Tyreek Hill another year older. And let's face it, Jalen Waddle, he's not getting any less injury prone. And as far as Miami and free agency, I don't really think they brought in a receiver of note.
Anthony,
they brought in a name, but I'm just drawing a blank here. Westbrook-Ikhine?
Yeah, they did bring in Westbrook, and then Malik Washington. Yeah. Malik Washington came on a little bit late last season. So, I mean, I think him and Westbrook-Ikhine will probably battle for some of those snaps. But I want to point this out, too. If you're investing in De'Von Achane, you're also investing in Tua Tagovailoa, and here's why. There were 4 games last year that when Tua first went out with that injury, well, Achane averaged in those 4 games 7.1 PPR points when they mixed quarterback. Tyler Huntley for a while, they had somebody else in there. But when Tua wasn't in there, defenses just gummed everything up in the front, loaded the box, and Achane had nowhere to go. The highest score that Achane had in those 4 games, PPR, was 10.5. So if Tua misses time and the quarterback is not one the defense is going to respect, teams will overload the box again and dare the quarterback to beat them. And so you're also with Achane, you're worried about Tua getting hurt. And I always say, and I love Tua, and I hope he's healthy for the rest of his life, but he is 1 hit away from possibly not seeing the field. And I don't say that lightly. I say that with a lot of fear and trepidation. But understand, you're betting on Tua there as well. All right, Anthony, Christian McCaffrey, the running back 7. So here's the question we have. McCaffrey had both Achilles were hurt preseason. He probably rushed back. I know he had the stem cell thing overseas, the procedure to get him healed up. He wasn't the same guy when he came back. It was just I said he was maybe 75% of what he was. He was not playing well. His yards after contact were not good. Broken tackle rate was way down. It was not the Christian McCaffrey we used to see. 30th percentile yards after the catch. The receiving McCaffrey didn't get it done. And then he gets hurt with a knee injury and misses the rest of the season. And there's that. But I have to say, Anthony, if whatever Achilles issues he had, the fact he got back on the field means he's probably in the recovery phase, and there's a good chance he can be back to normal. He's still 29. In terms of tread on his tires, 1,347 career carries is not a lot for a 29-year-old back. They will use him as a receiver. The 49ers are imploding, but they're going to need McCaffrey, and they're going to use him. If he is healthy, he can be the running back 1 again. Now, if you're worried about age, I get it. If you're worried about last year's Achilles flaring up, I get it. I'm willing to take him at running back 7. What about you?
Yeah, where CMC is currently going, and yes, there is a world where we get closer to draft season, right? We get July, August, we see CMC start creeping up into the first round. Right now, it looks like he's going mid-second round, which I'm fine with. I don't know if I'm willing to take CMC as my first draft pick on a team. If I'm taking CMC, he's either my RB2 because I'm taking him, one of these early running backs in the first round, or I'm anchoring my team with one of those top-end receivers in the first round. I need another player before I pull the trigger on McCaffrey because there is so much risk baked in. I also think there's a world, I get this offense can completely run through CMC, but I see a world that, they have Garendo, that the 49ers, they do usually pretty good drafting running backs and this is a deep running back class, where they bring in another running back, or maybe they bring in a guy like Chubb off the street to take some pressure off of CMC for the longevity. So there is some other risk factors I'm looking at. But yes, of course, does he still have that ceiling to where if he's healthy, finishing as the number one overall fantasy player? Yes, he does. I just don't, again, I'm not willing to take that risk if he's the first player I'm drafting.
Yeah, and in a recent best ball draft I'm doing with the Football Diehards crew, third round. Again, it was super flex. It was super flex. So quarterbacks are going earlier, but I had an opportunity in the third round. McCaffrey, it was the seventh running back off the board, and McCaffrey was there. It was him or Jonathan Taylor. I said, you know what? No guts, no glory. I'm going to swing for the upside here. I could have gone with Taylor there, and I wouldn't have sweated it. If I had two drafts, I would have taken Taylor there in one, and I would have taken McCaffrey in the other. But this being the first one, I go, you know what? Let's roll with it. And I felt good with that. But like we said, we don't know truly if the Achilles, it wasn't torn. He didn't blow out his Achilles. So he's not like going to be this athlete coming back from a blown out Achilles that needed surgical repair. It was like, I don't know, it was like tendonitis, the Achilles, something like that. So my guess is he should be a full go. And remember, he had injury questions 2020, 2021. But he had played 2 full seasons. The only game he missed when the 49ers benched their starters in week 18 of 2023. But he had played 2 full seasons before last year. So he has shown the ability to stay healthy. Anthony, let's go to another running back here. We're going to go to Breece Hall, going as the running back 11. Remember last year, he was one of the top 2 or 3 running backs off the board in every draft, and rightfully so. Well, 1,359 scrimmage yards sounds good. Obviously, for what you were paying for him, it was not good. You were expecting 1,600 as a very minimum. You were expecting like 1,900 or 2,000 scrimmage yards, and that was it. So it was very disappointing. 8 touchdowns, again, fine. But if you drafted Hall like I did, you were very upset about it. Now, his yards per carry declined. He had 4.8 the prior year. Last year, 4.2 wasn't good. Broken tackle rate, Anthony, only the 38th percentile. Yards after contact, 49th percentile. So he did not look like an elite back last year. I can't quantify what it was because 7 games as a rookie, he was like a league winner type. Second year with that bad Jets team with no quarterback play, a lot of receiving work, like a league winner. And then last year, frustration. Now, when he started out last year, Anthony, Hall had at least 20 PPR points in the first 2 games, but he only hit that 3 more times the rest of the way. There were times when Braylon Allen was getting like a ton of work. I don't know really what to do. And I got to go narrative here. There's nothing quantifiable I can give you that tells you that Hall is going to be this or that. My opinion is this. This is an opinion that the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, had a toxic effect on the offense. And I think that until late in the season, everything kind of just was off. I'm going to call it that because I can't see Breece Hall just having lost his talent. So at running back 11, yes, I will draft Breece Hall there. I'll have him as my running back 9 on my board, but he has upside way beyond that. What do you think about Breece Hall this year?
Yeah, absolutely taking my shots on Breece Hall, especially at cost. And again, a deep running back pool, maybe some incoming rookies. We can see this ADP can continue to become suppressed here. You know, you bring up the issues with the Jets offense. When he thrived in 2023, 76 receptions. Well, he had a quarterback that loved to check the ball down. Aaron Rodgers did not do that. He force-fed his guy, Devontae Adams, especially down the stretch. I can see a world where you're sharing a backfield with Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields will check the ball down a little bit more than Aaron Rodgers would. And then you brought it up before when we were talking about Justin Fields, the potential effect of the RPO. Look at the success of some of these running backs when they're paired with an RPO quarterback. Derrick Henry looked like he took a plunge in the fountain of youth last year. The running backs in Washington, Eckler at the tail end of his career. Brian Robinson's a good back, but at times he looked really good sharing a backfield with Jaden Daniels. And we could see the same effect where if Justin Fields gets going, running the football, and he becomes that elite threat like I think he will be, Breece Hall could be in store to the best season of his career. And I don't think that's crazy to say. He already has an RB 6 point per game finish in 2023. I could see him surpassing that if the stars align with the New York Jets and Justin Fields.
Yeah, the draft cost is too good to pass up if you're going for a running back in that stage. That allows you to work on receivers a little bit earlier, and you can get Breece Hall around that third round range. Hey, if you want to win more in your golf and football pools, I'd say March Madness, that's getting there in the second half of things. Pool Genius gives you data-driven picks and strategies to outsmart the competition. With over a decade of analytics and historical data, Pool Genius is the only site dedicated exclusively to helping people win sports pools. With Pool Genius users winning 3 times more often than expected. RotoWire listeners get exclusive offers. You visit poolgenius.com/RotoWire for up to 55% off, or you can start a 4-day free trial. Again, poolgenius.com/RotoWire. Anthony, next running back, Kenneth Walker, Seattle Seahawks, running back 15. He's always in that no man's land because as much as he's been around, we really don't know what this guy is because he's never the same player, like within the whole same season. We see different versions of him. So we looked last year. He missed some time. Charbonnet steps in, but his yards per carry, Anthony, they've gone down every single year. 4.6 as a rookie, 4.1 in 2023, 3.7 last year. He is very good at breaking tackles, but he's not good at getting yardage after he breaks them. Last year, it was just like 2023, 98th percentile broken tackle rate. We're like, yes, yes. Well, what did he do after that? 38th percentile after contact. So great, you broke a tackle, but you didn't get anywhere. Now, I will say this. He's a touchdown scorer. 3 seasons, 9, 9, and 8. So that's some bankable income there. You like that. And the receiving, it's been a little bit uneven, right? So in 2022 and 2023, he averages 36 catches, 212 yards. Last year, career highs, 46 catches, 299 yards. Now, his yards per catch went down last year, though. So again, the inefficiency, 6.5 yards per catch. He had been 8.5, so he lost a bit there. Here's what I want to point out, Anthony. Last year, Ryan Grubb took over, and I told everybody, Ryan Grubb will mess up because once the league adjusts him, he's a college coach. He's not used to making adjustments. And what happened? Kenneth Walker was on fire to start the season. First 5 games, Anthony, for Kenneth Walker, he had 4 of those games with 18.7 or more PPR points. And then the offense got figured out. The college coach got taught like a college coach, and Walker never hit 14 PPR points in another game. So that said, at this point, Zach Charbonnet may be a very reasonable co-number 1. I could see a world where he's not any longer just the number 2. I could see them both being co-1s. I'm not buying into Kenneth Walker. I've seen too much up and down. I've seen too much decline, and I don't know that he's patently better in every area than Charbonnet. Thoughts?
Yeah, Kenneth Walker is one of those guys where it's hard to evaluate because when he's on, you can make the case that Kenneth Walker looks like one of the best running backs in the NFL, and I don't know what happens. It's the injuries. It's the offense. There are times during the season where he just doesn't look like the same guy, and it makes it really difficult for me to draft Kenneth Walker, even at his current cost. If I look at some of the players going around Kenneth Walker, especially behind him, I mean, I know I'm going to be on somebody like Chuba Hubbard, James Conner. Even at this juncture of his career, he's a perennial value, and he's coming off one of the best seasons efficiency-wise, of his NFL career. So I just think that this is a deep position. There are other players I'd rather wait for than take the risk on Kenneth Walker.
So you mentioned James Conner. Let's move on to James Conner. Now, since 2021, I've been telling everybody, buy James Conner, buy James Conner. He was always cheap. Anthony's ADP is running back 20. This is as high as we've seen. Normally, you could get him in 30s, the 28, 30. You can always get him like late. And I'm like, hey, no problem. You're going to miss 3 games. Don't care. But we've got plenty of production when we're there. And last year, again, 1,094 yards and 8 touchdowns. Second year in a row, the only 2,000-yard years of his career. Durability, yeah, he missed games late. He was almost made it to the finish line. And then at the end of the season, right at the end of the fantasy playoffs, he got hurt. So that was a little frustrating. But again, 2 last years in Arizona, 4.6 and 5 yards per carry. James Conner went under 9.9 PPR points 3 times. And 2 of those games was because he left them early getting nicked up. So he was a force. But he's going to be 30. And I know Trey Benson was the clear number 2, but they did draft Benson. And at some point, Connor's the guy. But Benson might get a little more work. And at some point now, age is going to catch up to Connor. And I love Connor. He's one of my favorite players. But I think this is the year at running back 20 where the cost is now right on him. And that means I'm probably going to be, for the first time in 4 years, I'm going to pass on him. Thoughts?
Yeah, Connor, since going to Arizona, has always been a value. He used to be overdrafted in Pittsburgh, and back then he had that injury risk hanging over him. But since then, he's been simply outstanding. But with this cost increase, as you said, I don't know if I'm going to be in and out. Like I said, if you give me the choice between Walker and Connor, sure, I'll pull the trigger on James Conner because he's a little bit less expensive than Walker. But if I look at the other guys going around Connor, again, this is a deep positional group that's going to have incoming rookies in the deep class that could shake things up. But going right behind Connor, it's a guy like David Montgomery who had immense value and a decent volume in that Lions offense with Gibbs, and I don't see him going away. Even further behind, a really nice value, almost a full round later, is Tony Pollard in the season he's coming off of in Tennessee, and that was an offense without a great throwing game. If that has any improvement, Tony Pollard could be one of the better values in this draft. We keep going further back if you want to wait on running back. Somebody like Aaron Jones, Pacheco, Najee Harris. This is just a deep enough running back group or positional group this year where I don't have to spend up for James Conner because he does come with the age and injury risk, and they also have Benson behind him.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like I said, I've been a James Conner guy forever, and but I think the price finally caught up, and it's all right, and it's all right. And I'll pass on him reluctantly, and I hope he has another great season because I love me some James Conner. Hey, we got time for one more here. Let's talk about Najee Harris, Los Angeles Chargers, running back 25. Similar ADP to last year, Anthony. But I tell you what, I will say this line every year that I am an analyst. Volume is king in fantasy football. I've never said that 2 million times. So, look, you're playing for the Chargers. And here was the big difference between J.K. Dobbins and Najee Harris. Durability. Guess who's never missed a game in his NFL career, Anthony? Najee Harris. And he is always getting the ball. I mean, the volume is what it was his rookie year, but he gets it and he stays on the field. J.K. Dobbins, wonderful talent. Amazing upside. But you can't count on him. And last year he had a knee injury late in the season, missed a month, and there's that. So they bring in Najee Harris. And that defense was very good last year, but it wasn't a great defense. They're going to get better. They're going to keep adding pieces. The coaching another year, they're going to get better. And they're going to be in positive game script. And we know this team is going to bring in an extra fullback, an extra tight end. They are going to power run the ball, Greg Roman's offense. And Najee Harris may not be a great runner, but 3.8 to 4.1 yards per carry every season. So nothing great there. But I tell you what, his underlying measurables, Anthony, have always been good. His broken tackle, right, even last year, 87 percentile. Yards after contact was 63rd. It's been better in the past. But he's been in a team where the Steelers, they could not get the most out of him, I don't think. I think Harris is good, not great. But if you're going to give him that kind of work, and he got a bunch of passes last year. And he's at least 229 yards in 3 or 4 seasons. I'll throw the ball a little bit to him, but I think he's the lead back there. I think that he finally gets a resurgence where you see 280, maybe 300 carries. The durability is going to work. So as a pure volume play, give me some Najee Harris. Thoughts?
Yeah, he's another one of my all-in players already, and I don't see that changing. I love Najee Harris. I love the landing spot. This is a Chargers team that spent, I think, first-round draft capital 2 or 3 years to address the offensive line. Then this offseason, they go bring in Mekhi Becton, who had a career resurgence once Philly moved them into guard, just coming off that Super Bowl year. So we bring some of that experience over. They released Gus Edwards. J.K. Dobbins is still a free agent. I don't see them bringing either one of those guys back. And quite frankly, I know people think that they could add a running back in the draft. I don't think it's going to be early. This Chargers team, they need so much defensive help after moving off of Bosa, where those first, day 1, day 2 picks, they're probably going to go to the defensive side of the ball, maybe a wide receiver. This, in theory, could be the Najee Harris show. I think he's an underrated receiver out of the backfield. I think he's an upgrade as a receiver out of the backfield over J.K. Dobbins. And this 8th round ADP isn't going to last. Like I said, I've done a few best balls already, and his ADP is already going into the 7th round. And I can just see as we get closer to draft season, like after the NFL draft, if the Chargers don't bring in a running back of note, his ADP I could see going up to the 5th round. And I don't think that's crazy to say.
I think people believe Najee's not a good player, and he's a good player. Again, he's not a great player. Yeah. So if you're expecting him to be great, you're probably not getting him. But I will say it one more time. Volume is king in fantasy football, and I expect Najee Harris to get volume. And at running back 25, you could pencil him in as a running back 2. And if he gets in the end zone on a given week or so, then he'll definitely have a little more upside than that. But that floor is going to be really, really valuable. Hey, be a part of the RotoWire community on our new and improved Discord server. You can share fantasy advice, find a prop bet to tail, and interact with some of your favorite RotoWire experts. You join the conversation. RotoWire.com/chat. Remember, RotoWire covers all the fantasy sports. You can get a free 2-day trial. You don't even need a credit card. Just go to rotowire.com/pod. Check us out. If you like us, join the team. If not, we're glad you took a look. We want to thank our sponsors, Pool Genius and Edge Boost. And thanks to everyone for listening. You come back next week. We got wide receivers. We got tight ends, ADP. And that'll be on the edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast.